Pretty Shield, a woman celebrated for her wisdom and resilience, was born circa 1856. She entered into marriage with Goza Head, a courageous Crow scout who collaborated with the U.S. Army, including the notable George Armstrong Custer. Additionally, she was the niece of Half Yellowface, the Crow leader who oversaw the scouts accompanying Custer's 7th Cavalry. Possessing keen intelligence and a profound understanding of her culture, Pretty Shield's accounts of the Battle of Little Bighorn, where her husband fought alongside Custer, serve as a significant historical record. Her experiences and insights have made a lasting impact on history, providing a valuable perspective on that tumultuous period. Before we explore further, please remember to like and subscribe to support our journey. I inquired of Pretty Shield whether Goza Head was present with Custer during the pivotal battle. Her pride was unmistakable as she replied affirmatively. "Yes, indeed," she said, adding with a smile. "The chief in Washington sends me a paper every moon cycle. I take it to receive $30, which assists me in caring for my grandchildren, though I wouldn't mind a little more." When I encouraged her to elaborate, she looked toward the hill where white stones marked the spots where soldiers fell on June 25, 1876. "Were they buried there?" I asked, standing beside her. Her response was contemplative. "I'm not certain, sign talker, but I recall the scent of death lingered over this area throughout the summer. We had to leave. We couldn't endure that odor." As we returned inside, she sighed. "War is difficult. It takes our loved ones from us." Pretty Shield continued, her voice unwavering. "I was a young woman when General Custer, the son of the Morning Star, faced the Lakota in Cheyenne. Many of our men had joined General Terry, while others fought with General Crook, who was defeated by Crazy Horse at the Rosebud. Over 100 Crow warriors fought alongside Custer that day, and this is the story you seek." She began recounting the events from the beginning. "We had set up our camp near Rotten Sundance Teepee when the soldiers arrived in search of scouts. They had traversed the Elk River using a fireboat, reaching us just as the leaves were beginning to bud. Our chief greeted them warmly and offered a feast in their honor. 25 of our young men volunteered to accompany the Blue soldiers to the Tongue River, led by Half Yellowface. However, the Lakota managed to steal all their horses at the second camp, forcing the scouts to proceed on foot. My husband Goza Head was among them." She chuckled softly, acknowledging that while the Lakota were skilled horse thieves, we were equally adept. We often possessed Lakota horses ourselves. After losing their mounts, some young warriors returned to acquire more, while others remained behind. They eventually joined the Blue soldiers by the Tongue River, and later we relocated our village to Long Drop. Pretty Shield continued her story about a Shoshone warrior who sought additional Crows to fight alongside General Crook. Despite their determination, Crook faced defeat. She remarked that the battlefield was poorly selected, yet our men displayed remarkable bravery. Among the Crows who fought were Plenty Coups, Flathead Woman, and Medicine Crow. Pretty Shield reminisced about their return, wounded yet triumphant, prompting a celebration in the village filled with song and dance. She paused for a moment, then leaned in with a playful sparkle in her eyes. "Have you heard about the woman who fought at Rosebud?" "No?" "Let me tell you. She was unlike any other woman, embodying both masculine and feminine qualities, and possessed wisdom beyond her years. Her name was Finds the Men, Kills Them." Pretty Shield then spoke of another remarkable woman, a fierce spirit who fought valiantly with her acoustic weapon, skillfully maneuvering around the battlefield. When the Lakota attempted to claim Bull Snake's scalp, the strength of these women's medicine was so potent that it drove the Lakota away. Although the men seldom discussed this, Pretty Shield held the memory close. "After the battle, we held a grand scalp dance in celebration. The Wild One distributed the scalps she had collected, filling our village with joy. However, my husband, Goza Head, was not with us during this time. He remained in the company of Son of the Morning Star." At this point, Pretty Shield resumed the narrative of Little Bighorn. "After departing from the Tongue River, Custer advanced towards the Rosebud. My scout led the way, accompanied by 6 other Crow scouts, including Half Yellowface and Curly. They observed the signs indicating that numerous Lakota lodges had recently passed through, with their fires still smoldering. With a knowing expression, she remarked that Curly had claimed to be unwell. Whether he was truly ill or simply aware of the impending events remained uncertain. The scouts discovered Lakota tracks in abundance, resembling ants scattered over a buffalo hide. They even managed to capture a few horses preparing for the imminent confrontation. This camp, which had previously triumphed over 3 stars, had also secured victory against Crazy Horse and his warriors at the Rosebud, though this was unknown at the time. My scout, Harry Moccasin, along with White Man Runs Him, soon recognized that there were significantly more Lakota and Cheyenne warriors ahead than the Blue Soldiers had ammunition to match. Realizing the peril, they deemed it prudent to alert Son of the Morning Star and hurried back to deliver their warning. However, Son of the Morning Star, seemingly unfazed, merely waved them off and took a drink from a straw-covered bottle, encouraging them to continue onward. Complying with his directive, my scout and the other 2 Crow scouts moved forward, but upon reaching the vast Lakota village, they chose to wait for the arrival of Son of the Morning Star and his cavalry, understanding the importance of not proceeding alone. The overwhelming presence of Lakota and Cheyenne they had observed made it evident that this was not a confrontation to engage in without adequate support. When Son of the Morning Star eventually arrived, he inquired about a more suitable location for their camp, and my scout recommended the creek known to the white man as Thompson, a site favored for its refreshing waters. The Blue Soldiers established their camp there, and before dawn, the Crow scouts returned to their reconnaissance efforts. By mid-morning, they beheld the largest village they had ever encountered, sprawling along the banks of the Little Bighorn River, dotted with numerous lodges on the flat terrain and horses dotting the hills. Goza Head confessed to feeling a sense of unease at the sight of such a vast number of lodges. He and his companions withdrew to Reno Creek, where they encountered Son of the Morning Star, who was making his way down the creek. They reiterated their warnings, urging him to exercise caution in light of the overwhelming Lakota and Cheyenne forces, which far outnumbered the ammunition available to the Blue Soldiers. However, Son of the Morning Star was resolute, akin to a feather carried by the wind, his fate already sealed, and he refused to heed their advice. With her fist pressed to her forehead, she shook her head in dismay. He was indeed courageous, but he disregarded the warnings, she murmured. 2 individuals, a half-blood interpreter among them, also attempted to advise Son of the Morning Star, suggesting that he could still retreat safely. Nevertheless, the soldier chief remained steadfast in his decision to fight, bound to a destiny that would lead both him and his men to their demise. Goza Head recounted how Son of the Morning Star had indulged excessively in drink, resulting in the division of his Blue Soldiers into 3 groups, a critical mistake. Pretty Shield's voice trembled as she narrated the events. Goza Head prepared for battle, adorning his hair with feathers, while she described how Little Chief Reno led his contingent away, accompanied by the Arikara scouts, White Swan and Half Yellowface, who followed a misguided path. Curly, pretending to be ill, fled the scene. I know these accounts to be accurate because Goza Head was present and witnessed everything. Reno crossed the river and opened fire, but soon retreated, recognizing the inevitable outcome of the confrontation. Goza Head rode alongside Son of the Morning Star as they waded into the waters of the Little Bighorn. He heard a Lakota warrior shout at 2 individuals, warning them to retreat or face death. Nevertheless, Son of the Morning Star continued forward, ultimately falling into the water along with the 2 individuals and his flag bearer. Following his fall, the Blue Soldiers dispersed, retreating up the hill. Goza Head, accompanied by Harry Moccasin and White Man Runs Him, fled, aware that their efforts were futile. Goza Head pointed out the exact spot where Son of the Morning Star had fallen. They escaped through a small creek that flowed into the Little Bighorn, just above the site of his demise. "I will take you there one day and show you," he promised. They ran until they reached the Packers, who were well stocked with supplies and ammunition. Upon their arrival, Goza Head, Harry Moccasin, and White Man Runs Him found the Packers encircled defensively, their mules collapsing as bullets fell like rain. Together with the Packers, they repelled the Lakota and Cheyenne, with Goza Head asserting that they had slain more warriors than the Blue Soldiers had. Pretty Shield's voice grew more intense, her body tensing as she spoke. Then with a deep breath, she relaxed, recounting how Goza Head confessed his fear, but did not flee until he witnessed Son of the Morning Star's fall. "He spoke the truth," she murmured softly. "The monument erected by the white man to commemorate where Son of the Morning Star fell is a falsehood. He fell in the water, Pretty Shield whispered, as if addressing Goza Head's spirit. Her words resonated deeply within me. Our interpreter, Goes Together, paused her work on the buckskin, visibly affected by Pretty Shield's tale. When she resumed speaking, her words caught me off guard. The sun had passed its zenith when the shouting and gunfire finally subsided, she stated calmly. White man runs him, then urged my companion, Goes Ahead, and Harry Moccasin to depart before the enemy advanced. Armed with soldiers' weapons, the three Crow wolves prepared to leave, hoping to return to their people. When the chief packer inquired about their destination, White Man Runs Him cleverly responded, "We are going to fetch water." Despite the packer providing them with canteens, it was known that none who had previously gone for water had returned alive. The three men disregarded the canteens and instead proceeded up Reno Creek, where they encountered four Lakota wolves observing them from a distance. Goza Head managed to kill one of the wolves, taking its gray horse and giving it to White Man Runs Him. They alternated riding the horse, having lost their own mounts in the battle. By June, when the foliage was lush and the rain had caused the Bighorn River to swell, Goza Head and his companions reached its banks. They swam across, believing they had reached the opposite shore, only to find themselves on an island, cold and famished. Their last meal had been consumed prior to the battle. Eventually, they completed their crossing near what is now Hardin. Later, they noticed two figures on the distant hills. Assuming they were Crow warriors, Goza Head signaled for them to approach. One of the figures, No Milk, crossed the river to meet them, bringing bacon, bread, and clothing, and informing them of the deaths of White Swan and Half Yellowface. They also learned of the demise of many others, including the Little Soldier Chief Reno's men. The journey back to their village was fraught with tension. Upon their return, they were mistakenly identified as Lakota by their own warriors, who attacked them in error. To halt the fighting, Goza Head was compelled to kill two horses, highlighting the heightened tensions of that time. Everyone appeared to be a potential enemy. The return of our warriors was somber. I felt joy at seeing Goza Head, but the loss of Half Yellowface and White Swan cast a dark pall over the occasion. The mourning was heavy with grief, as families mourned and inflicted wounds upon themselves in sorrow. However, Goza Head urged my father to wait 4 days for his brother, Half Yellowface, before succumbing to despair. That evening, the village was enveloped in sorrow for our warriors, for the son of the morning star, and for the blue soldiers who met such a tragic fate. I, Sign Talker, believed that whiskey clouded the judgment of that once great chief on his final day. Whiskey has frequently led to poor decisions. Our own leaders have relinquished lands while under its influence. This was not a behavior our elders were familiar with. I recall when some Crow warriors first experienced whiskey after a fireboat exploded on the Big River, leaving barrels scattered along the shore. It turned them into jesters, and we laughed at their foolishness. Although our people once scorned those who indulged excessively, it appears that our men have recently become indifferent to such ridicule. Now I inquired about Half Yellowface, White Swan, and Curly, hoping to redirect her thoughts to their narrative. Curly did not return for quite some time, she explained. He had joined the other soldiers, led by the limping one, at the site of the great battle. Curly only spoke of his experiences after his journey to Washington with the white men, and even then, his words often strayed from the direct path, as we say. In contrast, Half Yellowface and White Swan returned to recount their story, speaking as if they had come from the realm of the dead, for many believed they had perished. They described how they inadvertently aligned themselves with the little chief's men. As they neared the expansive Lakota village, they witnessed the lesser chief become entangled in his own stirrup, being dragged away by his horse. Aware that their end was imminent, Half Yellowface and White Swan sought refuge in a hole in the hill, which my man later showed me. I will also show it to you. They remained concealed in that hole while the Lakotas set fires to flush them out. White Swan sustained a bullet wound to his hand, which never fully healed, and although other injuries left their marks, none were as severe. For 2 days and nights the air was thick with smoke as they lay beside some Arikara wolves, waiting for the battle to subside. When the Lakota and Cheyenne finally retreated, the walking soldiers arrived. With White Swan's condition deteriorating, Half Yellowface felt a sense of relief upon their arrival, knowing they would provide sustenance and assistance. Pretty Shield hesitated, seemingly lost in contemplation, but then, almost in defense of the fallen chief, remarked that even if Son of the Morning Star had managed to keep his men united, he would not have evaded death that day. The enemy was simply too numerous. Had the other two, 3 stars and the limping one, allied with him, perhaps the outcome would have been different. However, alone, no leader could have triumphed over the Lakota and Cheyenne forces. 2 years later, Half Yellowface guided us across the battlefield, recounting the events as if they were happening anew. I can lead you there myself, just as he did for me. Long after the battle, our people discovered remnants of the Blue Soldiers, their bodies strewn across the land, serving as a haunting reminder of that dreadful day. One summer, 4 Blue Soldiers, including a chief, were found near Big Shoulder, not far from where the conflict had unfolded. It was a somber reminder of the losses endured. As the light began to fade from the window, Pretty Shield abruptly rose, her blanket slipping to the floor. "The day is nearly over," she declared. "I have spoken too long about war and neglected my grandchildren." I offered to accompany her to the trader's store, and as we walked, we encountered an elderly Indian, nearly 60, sharing tales with the trader about Goza Head. He recounted how Goza Head had shown him the exact location where General Custer, son of the Morning Star, fell into the water, and where White Man Run's him and Harry Moccasin had fought alongside the Packers.